From Walden University's Career Services Center, welcome to today's webinar, Advancing Your Career in Project Management. I'm Lisa Cook, Senior Director of Career Services, and I will be your moderator today. I'm very pleased to have joining us today 3 esteemed faculty and administrators from Project Management here at Walden. We have Dr. Russ Darnell, Dr. Jean Dorrell, Dr. Kathy Simmons. Dr. Darnell and Dr. Dorrell are teaching faculty, and Dr. Simmons is the program director for the Masters in Program Management. Also joining me is Senior Career Services Advisor Nicole Skalski, who is co-hosting and doing our technical moderation today. So before we get started, I'd like to briefly introduce you to our Career Services Center team. There are 5 of us. We're all full-time, and we work in Minneapolis, Minnesota at the Walden Academic Headquarters. And so we have Dina Bergman, our Associate Director. I'm in the middle. To the right on the screen is Angie Lira, Senior Career Advisor, Nicole Skalski, who is our technical moderator today on the bottom left, and Denise Pranke, also our Senior Career Services Advisor. So our mission is to help you proactively manage your career. So whatever your stage of your academic program, if you're looking at career options for your degree, or you want resume help or interviewing help or help with your LinkedIn profile, we're here to support you in meeting your career goals. So we hope that you'll take advantage of our services and resources, and we're very pleased to have such a strong turnout today. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nicole, who is going to read our first poll.
Excellent. Excuse me. Thank you, Lisa. So as we all know, Walden has a very strong global community, and it's growing all the time. So we're really interested in finding out where our audience is coming from. So you'll see a question on your screen, and if you could take a moment to identify what region in the world you are joining us from. Would that be North America, Europe, South America, or the Caribbean, Africa, or the Middle East? And we'll give everyone a moment to respond. It's very exciting to see where people are joining us from. Wow. We actually have almost every region responding. Great. So I'll give everyone a second out more, and now I'm about to close the poll so we can see the results. So it looks like, of course, majority, 80% from North America, but that leaves another 20% from the Middle East, divided up from the Middle East, Africa, and Europe, which is really amazing. So welcome, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us. And again, feel free to pose any of your questions as we move along towards the webinar. So thank you again. And we're moving along.
So next, I'm going to introduce our esteemed faculty presenters. We have with us Dr. Russ Darnell, who is a lead instructor here at Walden in the Masters in Project Management program in the College of Management Technology. Dr. Darnell holds a doctorate in management, a master's degree in project management. He's a certified professional in project management. He has 15 years of project management experience in large, complex projects, including roles on projects in the United States, Canada, Ireland, India, Puerto Rico, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, and Chile. Wow. So lots of international experience. And also, he has written books on project management and has presented at conferences in Poland, Chile, and South Carolina. So, so Dr. Darnell, welcome. And briefly, can you tell us what led you to pursue a career in project management?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, how did I get into project management? I started out with an undergraduate degree in social work with the goal of saving the world. So I spent about 10 years achieving that goal, and after I achieved that goal, I was looking for a career change. And I heard about this new master's program in project management, and I did the old-fashioned thing. I went to college and actually sat in a classroom where I got my master's degree in project management. But while I was in the degree program, I visited a company called Fluor Corporation. Fluor is a Fortune 500 engineering construction company that was named by Tom Peters as the best company in the world at project management. And while I was visiting the company, I developed some relationships, And with my degree in hand, I went back and asked for a job. Now, I had to convince them to give me a job because I had no engineering or construction experience. And they took me in as a trainee in project management, and I went through their floor project management training and began a career that lasted 15 years with the company, where eventually I managed a number of projects which you heard about earlier. The fact that I was not an engineer was a huge disadvantage, but it was also an advantage because I didn't have any technical engineering or construction knowledge, but I had people skills that I developed during my time as a social worker and running the children's home. And in the business, I found that engineers had a disadvantage often of working with clients and managing teams, etc. So one of the lessons I learned that I hope to pass on you is never underestimate the importance of your people skills. Project failure rarely depends on technical failures, but it's the people skills that you develop in addition to your project management skills that will enable you to have a good career. Now, Jean, you're going to talk to us about how you got into project management.
Yes, Dr. Doral,
Yeah.
would you like to share? Great, thanks.
Sure, yeah, not a problem. A little bit later in the presentation, I'm going to be talking about accidental project managers, and I just want to let you know that I am, or was, one of them. I was practicing law and then went to work for a legal publishing company. This will really date me now, but at that point, we were just starting the development of desktop software to assist lawyers in doing their legal research and preparing pleadings, jury instructions, etc. And because I had practiced law, I was in the R&D department helping, trying to figure out how to design user interfaces. It's interesting, Russ mentioned, you know, he went to an engineering company without engineering experience. My experience in the legal publishing company was I was a lawyer, but I knew technical stuff, so the lawyers weren't so sure about me. But because I didn't write code, or the last code I had written was Fortran a long time ago, even back then, the developers weren't sure I belonged there either, so I always kind of had one foot in both worlds. At any rate, as we got into developing more of these desktop software products, it was very clear after shipping a few disasters that we needed a more robust quality assurance environment. So I headed up that unit. The way I got into, as a manager, as a functional manager, the way I got into project management was really accidental. I would sit in these meetings and try and pry out of the development teams when I could expect the code that we would receive so we could start testing the product in our test labs that simulated law offices environments. And so I would listen, and they would always tell me, "Don't worry, Jane, it'll be fine." And I'm thinking, yeah, well, we'll see. And, you know, it turns out they couldn't produce things very often on a schedule. And so in those meetings, I started making a note of when I could expect the code so I could do some of my typical kinds of staff planning, resource planning. And and then I would distribute that to make sure I hadn't misunderstood anything. And it turns out that that was the start. The simple little Excel spreadsheet with the deliverable and the dates to what would result in, I don't want to say 180-degree turn, but certainly a 90-degree turn in my career. Because when we started looking at that, we discovered that we really didn't have very robust project management processes on the software development side for our development teams. And so then I was asked to head up an effort that would create a project management support office and develop talent internally and then hire experienced project managers to supplement what we could do internally. And so I thought, oh, good grief. Now, you know, this worked out well for me when Jean was just doing the little Excel spreadsheet for her own group. but nah, this was bigger than me. So that was back, and I know I'm dating myself, but that was back in 1997. So that's when I joined PMI, and I thought, well, I better figure out what in the world the rest of the world is doing in this regard. And darn if it wasn't true that it was refreshing in a way, discouraging in another way, but refreshing when I went to my first PMI conference out in California. I remember hearing from my colleagues that they were all experiencing the same problem in terms of getting products done on time, pleasing customers, keeping their teams together. And you'll hear as we go through this webinar a very strong focus from Russ and me on technical skills, but also soft skills, people skills, because that's what project leadership and teams are all about. So that was my accidental project management experiences, and from that point on, I have not looked back. So I just one opportunity after another, all related to project and program and portfolio management.
Thank you, Dr. Doral. And like Russ, you've gone on to have a great international experiential career as well. You've worked with clients in U.S., Canada, Mexico, England, Scotland, France, and Poland. So it's fantastic, the careers you both have built. So thank you very much for your introduction. And now I'm going to turn it back to Russ to go over our objectives.
We have 4 primary objectives of what we're trying to achieve in this webinar. The first is to go over the qualifications that you need to be a project manager and kind of what's evolving as far as career options. There's no single path for project management. We're going to identify transferable skills and experiences. This is what you already have. I suspect a lot of people say, whoa, I don't have enough experience. But you'd be surprised at some of the skills and experiences that you already have that are transferable to project management. You're going to have an opportunity to look at the application materials. How do you apply for a job and how you might improve those? And expand your professional network. This is absolutely critical to you to think about how you get jobs. One of the things that, as I look back, it surprised me. I applied for very few jobs. Most of the jobs that I had over a 40-year career, somebody came to me and said, I have a position I think you might be interested in. That's because of a brand or because of a reputation that you build. And to have people that connect with you and know about that reputation is going to be important as your career development and where you go from there. Okay, so let's talk about what are the knowledge, skills, and processes. To effectively manage a project manager must have basic knowledge and skills and processes. This is true of all projects, and no matter what industry you're in. You've got to also have an understanding of the industry. And as I was talking about, for me, was the construction industry and how I had to learn that. Other people come into the industry with a strong industry background, but without the basic project management skills and knowledge. There's a third component. Even though I learned construction after 10 years at Fluor, and I had a strong basic project management, I had to learn how to do projects in countries other than the United States. I had to learn projects in specific industries outside the United States. And those are project-specific skills and knowledge that you need to develop. In looking at your career, one of the things you need to look at is what are the basic skills and project management that I have or need to have, and then again, what are the industry-specific needs and skills that I need to develop. So if we go on and start looking at what are those basic project management skills, there we go. You got to develop an understanding of what the knowledge areas are and what you need to understand within this. And the project management body of knowledge which is produced by PMI, divides these into 10 knowledge areas and 5 process groups. These are skills that are important, but they're not sufficient. You also need to develop and demonstrate knowledge and skills appropriate for your industry, as well as your ability to lead. Leadership skills are critical to managing your projects. This is the ability to listen, to communicate effectively, both written and orally, the ability to motivate your team to work within a matrix environment, as well as to understand and use emotional intelligence. And these are just some of the leadership skills you need to have as a project manager. Now let's talk about industry-specific methodologies. Okay, there we go. There's a number of industries that rely heavily on project management, and I've listed a few up here. Some of them are pretty obvious, like construction or the information technology, who are absolutely dependent on project management skills. But you might not think about things like a motion picture as a project, or a pharmaceutical or medical. These are industry knowledge that people need to develop in order to effectively manage their projects. When Boeing was building a new plant in Charleston, South Carolina, I was hired to be the project manager in charge of training and getting people ready for a brand new plant that Boeing built. And we had to train over 5,000 new workers for the plant because it was a brand new plant. So the first thing I did was I went out and hired a training expert. Again, this was an industry where I had some knowledge and some understanding, but I wanted an expert in the field. The second person I hired was an Air Force Master Chief who understood airplane dynamics and understand airplane maintenance and understood the language. And between the three of us, we had the knowledge and skills to be able to run the project. I brought in the project management processes and skills. I had somebody who understood training and how that was done. And I had somebody who understood the plane industry. And all of those were important to run in this one particular project. Now, Nicole, we were going to do another poll.
Yes, that's correct. So as we know, certification is a big part of the field of project management, so we just want to gauge a little bit from our audience on where they are in the process and if it's something they're working on. So the poll is now open. So which best describes your current project management certification status? Do you already hold the PMP certification? Are you working toward the PMP certification? Do you hold some other type of project management certification or credential? Or not currently considering a certification? Okay, we'll just give everyone a couple seconds more to answer. I want at least to get 80% of our audience voting. And it looks like we have quite a bit across the board, but that the majority are working on it. So good to know. So I'm going to close the poll, share it. 40% working, currently working towards the PMP certification, 40% not considering certification. A small percentage, 2%, actually hold the PMP certification, and 10% some other credential. So thank you for sharing, you all, and that will be helpful to our presenters as well. So we're moving on to talking about the PMP certification with Russ. Take it away.
We've had several people express an interest in taking the PMP exam. And there are several requirements that need to be fulfilled in order to be eligible to take the exam. And as many of you know, some organizations require the PMP, especially in the United States, to be eligible for project management jobs. the project management designation, as a project manager, attests that you have demonstrated through passing an exam that you have basic knowledge and understanding of project management processes. If you do not have a college degree, so I don't think I'm talking to a lot of people on the webinar, then you need 5 years of project management experience and 35 hours of project management education or formal training in project management. If you have a college degree, then you need 3 years of project management experience. Now, don't let the 3 years of leading or directing projects scare you. This number includes a lot of project activities that many people do in their normal course of their job. For example, if you've been responsible for scheduling work or procuring materials or leading a team, many of these activities can count towards being eligible to take the PMP exam. Just be sure that you document these activities and have someone who can attest to PMI that this is the kind of work that you were doing. In our Masters of Project Management courses, each course is eligible to up to 45 contact hours that can lead toward your eligibility to take the exam. So, Jean, you were going to talk to us about the accidental project manager?
Yes, absolutely. And other opportunities to gain some of that project management experience that you just referred to, Russ. As I indicated in my introduction, I'm a living example of a accidental project manager, and I've had so many students over the years talk with me and say, you know, I think I might be interested in moving into a project management career, but you know, I'm not in that kind of a position now, and I'm really not sure how to go about it and how to get started. And I just want to reassure everyone on the webinar that many, I mean, if you entered the profession when I did, you had to be an accidental project manager because there was barely a role called project management at that time, and much less a position or a career path. Now, over the last few decades, the profession has developed incredibly, but I want to help everyone understand that many of us got a start as an accidental project manager that did project management activities as part of a position that was not called project manager. In my own case, an example. And the other thing that I think I can be a personal example for in my advancing years here is this profession ages well. That insight that Russ talked about in terms of people, you know, all of your experiences that you gain in working in a lot of different environments is very, very valuable for leading and managing projects. So let's take a look at some of those opportunities that might be available for those of you that aren't currently in a project management position or role, but are interested in gaining some experience. And perhaps it's because I've spent so much of my life, my life's professional work doing projects and programs of one sort or another, but I do see project opportunities everywhere. And I wanted to list some specific opportunities that maybe some of you haven't thought about, because I know in teaching, when we have students select a project, some of them freak out because they're not currently a project manager. But some of the most interesting projects I've seen developed over a course relate to something that they're really interested in personally. And so if you think about life being full of projects, you know, to-do lists, those are all small projects. But I wanted to mention a few that I've seen developed formally, submitted for credit, remodeling a home or a room in a home, building a tool shed. I had another student do that. One of my students was in the process of planning a wedding, and you should see the details she went into in terms of treating that wedding as a project. that was one of the best planned weddings, and I can verify personally it went off without a hitch. Another situation that I've seen a number of students use and, get experience in terms of treating as a formal project is building a family garden. My niece and nephew in Minnesota and their 2 young children are in the process of doing that now. And let me tell you, planning it with the children, budgeting for it, identifying the resources that you're going to need, thinking about the risks, managing the execution, helping the children learn about their responsibilities in terms of taking care of it. So another very common opportunity, and many of our volunteer organizations are badly in need of volunteer efforts to either raise funds or manage a fundraising event or some kind of other community or church-related activities. So you can see that these projects are everywhere, and the really great thing is that as long as Russ said, you have someone that can verify that you did this activity, all of these kinds of experiences count toward those experiences that you need to document in order to meet the PMP experience requirements. So the next thing that we want to take a look at, so now projects are everywhere. Many of us have an opportunity within our professional responsibilities to work on projects. Another opportunity that I didn't mention on the slide that I should, and I wish I had, and that is that if you're a PMI member or thinking about being a member, PMI particularly, well, all over the world, but particularly in North America, have local chapters, and they are always looking for assistance in terms of managing some of the initiatives that the local chapter has. So, but I want to leave with everyone who's participating in the webinar a really positive feeling about the current opportunities for project management and for project managers. Because work these days, the global business environment is getting more complex and increasingly virtual, so you've got teams distributed across the world. The cost of poor project management is up. As you can see from the slide, it's not increasing, the project success is not increasing, the cost of poor performance is increasing instead. So as project managers, we have an opportunity to demonstrate how we can leverage project management success. And on the slide it says reduce waste, and I just want to share with you that in my experience, this waste looks like rework. In other words, if you haven't successfully planned the project because you jumped in and started doing the work without a plan developed and without truly understanding the requirements, by the time you finish developing whatever you thought the client or customer needed, it might turn out that that wasn't what they really needed after all. And so you need to go back and throw away some of the work that you've done and redo the work. That's a very good example of waste, and it contributes to the overall cost of the product, not to mention the dissatisfaction of the customer. And this is the language that the business leaders will understand. So when you start talking about efficiency and eliminating rework, then you can get the attention of the business side of the organization. Now, how do you turn this opportunity into something that's more positive? So if you can establish the repeatable processes that project success involves, then organizations can be more successful. And so what we want to look at is how you communicate the value that project management can bring to the business managers and executives in an organization. And that requires placing a high priority on creating a culture that recognizes the importance of project management. Now, how do you do that? You can see that where the culture of project management is present and valued, that those organizations are more successful. So what does this culture of project management look like? To me, it would be if I went into an organization, as I did for many, many years as an external consultant, and some executive that brought me in said that, well, we really value project management here. What would I expect to see? If I looked at project teams, if I sat in on project meetings, I would expect to see that there was a repeatable framework that was built on those practices that were successful in that organization. So it's up to us then, as project managers, to help the business leaders understand the value, the bottom line value that project management processes can have. And the way we do that, you don't just wake up one day and all of a sudden have everyone valuing project management. At least that's not been my experience. You do that, one project at a time. What can we do as individual project managers? Well, number one, we can be successful. And number two, we can identify what it is that we did on our team that allowed us to be successful, to turn that project into a product or a service that a customer wanted in the time that we were required to do it and at the budget that we were given to do the work. And so we want to identify what those practices are. So let's look at the next slide and see what it takes to be able to do that, to build on those successes. So effective project and program management requires, and Russ already mentioned this, a blending of technical skills and soft skills. We need to understand those processes that were listed on an earlier slide. We need to have the technical skills that are required in order to manage the project. Very early in the evolution of the profession, we really emphasized technical skills to the exclusion of soft skills, I might add. So we were looking at being able to use Primavera software, Microsoft project software, to develop complex network diagrams, critical paths based on, and budgets based on net present value and earned value and on and on and on. Okay, and don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that that's not needed, but I am saying very strongly that that's not sufficient. And as Russ mentioned earlier, soft skills are not only necessary, most of the time, especially on these large, global, complex, virtual project teams, it's the failure to communicate and establish a shared understanding that contributes significantly to project failure. And so we see, and certainly at Walden, we emphasize the importance of blending the technical skills and the soft skills. So let's see what those skills look like and how we can use those to contribute to the value of a culture of project management. So we, this P is important here, and I think it says in fewer words than I just used the importance of soft skills. And the P is in project management is as much about people management as it is about project management. And I couldn't agree more. What we want to try and do is develop our personal skills. And Russ's background as a social worker gave him an edge up on that. Nobody has all of the skills that are needed. So we all need to be working on complementing the skills that we bring to the table with those that we can strengthen in order to be more effective. But I urge you to think about both the technical skills that are necessary and the people and the process skills that are equally necessary, or perhaps in this complex business environment that many of us are functioning, even more important. Because as Russ said, projects rarely fail because of technical failures. The vast majority of the time it's some kind of communication problem, not understanding the need, not agreeing on what was going to be done, not agreeing on success factors, etc. So the good news, I guess, if we go on and look at the potential career opportunities and growth, the good news is that is increasing, the maturity is improving. We have lots of opportunities across diverse industries. Russ already mentioned some of them, and so the future looks very promising for all of us, particularly for those of you that are interested in growing your professional careers, and either doing project management full-time or just being able to be an effective project manager along with some of the other responsibilities that you have in an organization. So now, so I hope you're excited by the opportunities and the opportunity for growth. And now Nicole, I think, will give you more specific advice in terms of how to address some of these opportunities.
Yes, thank you very much, Jean. So again, I'm Senior Career Advisor Nicole Skelski with Walden Career Services, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about our career resources in relation to marketing yourself on your resume, building those connections as that are so important that our speakers mentioned via both online and face-to-face, with relevance, of course, in the field of project management. So the first thing is talking a little bit about our resume resources that we have here in Career Services, and our speakers helped me with coming up with a list of keywords. So inserting keywords into your resume and on your LinkedIn profile are very important no matter what job search, what field you're in. We all have keywords for our different fields. So when applying for positions, resumes are scanned for keywords. And also when recruiters are seeking out individuals to recruit on LinkedIn, it's important to have those keywords in your profile as well. So again, Russ and Jean helped me with coming up with some keywords that are important to project management, and no need to write them all down. Again, this will be recorded and archived on our website along with a PowerPoint, so you'll be able to refer back to us. And in a moment, I'll talk about some of our resume resources that are available to you to also build a resume and insert those keywords in. So we're going to talk a little about both online and face-to-face networking, and again, our speakers helped me to come up with a really nice list of what they agree to be some of the top LinkedIn groups for project management to join, along with the link. So we have PMI for Career Advancement, Project Management Network, Communities, Association, and Prince2, Project and Program Management. So nice list of 5 groups there. So if you're already on LinkedIn, you definitely want to look into joining some of those groups. And for at least in the beginning, be a fly on the wall and just observe what's going on in the groups. What are the conversations? It's fine to pose questions, because you'll have people across the board, more advanced project managers and new people also getting started in the field. And then Jean also helped come up with an awesome list of thought leaders in the field to follow on Twitter. So those of you who are on Twitter, and Jean's also going to share some thoughts about Twitter and social media in general as far as the relevance to project management. So Jean, do you want to add any comments about your list here?
Yeah, I would encourage, I think for many of us, particularly that are middle age or beyond, some of this social media stuff is kind of difficult to deal with. And while many of us might be on Facebook personally and LinkedIn professionally, I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of some of the potential for building out your professional network on Twitter. Now, on Twitter, when Twitter first came out, it continues to get a bad rap for people putting on Twitter what they had for breakfast and, too much information all around in terms of what they're doing every hour of the day. But it's really like the profession. It's really matured. And So I just shared a few of the links that that I follow on Twitter, and there's apps, different apps to follow, or you can do it on your laptop. And, you know, so you can search on Twitter using these usernames, in effect, what it is. And I would encourage you, Nicole mentioned just, you know, following. The word that we use for that on Twitter is lurking. So if you go to @HarvardBiz and see, you know, who's posting what, or, you know, the PM links, or some of the PM leaders, or one of the better PMI's blog, and just see who is posting interesting thoughts or responses, and then you can slowly start to follow them, and you know, and just hang out. Lurk is like I say, the word that I think we typically use. You don't have to write anything or contribute anything. You just have to be able to identify some of the people who are maybe halfway around the world from you that are interested in the same things that you're interested in, and making some interesting comments, identifying some important resources. And you can always see, if you find an interesting article, you know, that you're doing research in for your program, you know, see if the author has a presence on Twitter, because very often they do. And in my experience, it's because it's very easy to post something very quickly on Twitter. It's more current and more dynamic than some of the LinkedIn groups that I belong to. So I just encourage you to lurk on Twitter around some of these professional organizations and people whose thinking, I was going to say whose thinking you find valuable. And by doing that, between LinkedIn and Twitter, and then the professional person-to-person networks, and if you start working on that as you're going through your training, you'll have an expanded network of folks that you can rely on if you're looking for jobs, if you're looking for advice. And as Russ mentioned, we all know that very often our opportunities, and this has certainly been true of me professionally as well, come from these kinds of connections. So don't let that go. Spend a little bit of time each week building your career. And I'm sure the career services folks can sermonize on this even more than I am at this point. But, you know, throughout your career, I think it's really important to stay current and stay connected.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Jean. That's exactly what we preach over here. Okay, so while online networking, we discussed that, is great, one can definitely not overlook the value of face-to-face networking. And one of the best ways to do that, or get started with that if you haven't already, is to join a local chapter of your professional association for your field, which of course in this case is PMI. Our speakers mentioned that earlier. Especially if you're in North America, you can go to PMI, the website, and most professional associations will have a tab or a link to find out about local chapters. And then many times they'll have LinkedIn groups, so you can do both. You know, you can join face-to-face and go to the local events, and then you can also join the group online. So they will offer local networking opportunities, which is really important for you, conferences and extensive volunteer opportunities, leadership opportunities. Many offer mentorship programs, so on the slide, like finding a coach or someone to mentor you locally. So again, it's a great way to meet people, cultivate your network, stay up on trends, and also build your resume and qualifications. And so we also, finally here, put together some resources for gaining some experience. Some particular websites like Indeed, PM Volunteers, a link for contract work, full-time work, etc. So again, these resources will be available on our website, so no need to write them down. So you can do some searches there. And now going on to our Career Center resources. For those of you who have not visited the Career Center website, we do have a wealth of resources on everything about career management and job search, from doing an assessment all the way to interviewing and following up after the interview. We have resources by program, but specifically on this slide, I'm pointing out the resumes and CVs tab where we have you can find resume resources, tips on how to tailor your document, the various sections of a resume, and then on the left there, our optimal resume button. Now, optimal resume is a system that can be, if you click on that, it'll take you right to this page, the optimal resume tool, which has 5 modules in it, and it's free to all Walden students. So we do encourage you, here I can put my cursor circle around the new user, create an account. After the webinar, if you'd like to go in there and create an account, you just use your Walden email address to validate you as a student, and you can join for free. There's over 300 resume samples, and we do have an extensive management section with over 50 samples. And they're also based on entry level, mid-career, and extensive experience. So again, a great resource for maybe even if you're looking to update your own resume and just want a new visually pleasing resume, there are already formatted templates for you to use. And now we're going to open it up for questions. It does look like we have a lot of questions coming in. And just give me a moment to open up my screen here. Okay, so one question would be if one of you, maybe Russ, could you comment on any type of student membership discounts for PMI? And do you all know anything about that, if they exist?
Yes, they do exist. I don't know what the amount is. It's relatively small, but there is a PMI student fee.
Yeah,
okay,
and this is Kathy Simmons. Yes, you can get a student discount simply by, I think we give student ID cards or something that just demonstrates that you're a Walden student, so you can get a discount.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, have another question of a student who says, I have managed programs and projects from 50 million to over 200 million and have 15 years of programs project management experience. So this person is interested in wondering how they can use this experience toward the PMP certificate. Jean, do you want to answer that one?
I can take a crack at it.
Okay.
And correct me, double check this, but the types of experience in terms of, as Russ mentioned, in terms of leading teams, leading people, being primary responsible, as long as you can couch it in those kinds of words, and it sounds like the person with all that experience and those large projects would certainly not have problems. The one thing that I think you have to be careful for is you can only count experience from the most recent 10 years. So,
okay, yeah, that's helpful.
You should be well set to have enough credit. Let me put it that way, to meet the experience requirements. You'll find that the forms for filling that experience requirement out and having it documented are available on the PMI.org website. You don't have to be a member. If you're thinking about sitting for the exam, though, it certainly pays you to join because the exam is more reduced than the cost of the membership, plus the exam for PMI members. The other challenge that I know I had when I sat for my PGMP credential was going back and finding the people who could verify that I actually did that work, because I was doing a lot of it as an external consultant and some of the companies weren't in business any longer. So that would be the other caution that I would have. Take advantage of the fact that, you can only count 10 years of experience, and then making sure that in case your application gets audited, that the people who supervised your work or were in a position to know that you did the work are aware that you're making that application.
Sure, thank you. Excellent. Okay, Dr. Doyle, this question is actually posed for you. Can you expand on becoming an external consultant or freelance contractor as a project manager in terms of building a career?
I probably can and would take up all the rest of the time and then some, but let me just say this. One of the best things I did, that experience that I described earlier in the webinar in terms of the accidental project manager, and then growing into creating a more formal project management support office and managing that. I was at that organization, that legal publishing company, for almost a decade. I moved from that to a company that did consulting. So I was an account manager for program planning professionals, PQ we were known as. And in that capacity, I went out and examined situations where executives were calling in outside help. And then trying to build the business plan, the proposal, and get the work, and then manage the project teams that we brought in order to help them jumpstart their efforts at developing a project management set of processes and improving their maturity. That was extremely valuable because, you know, when you're working for, and humbling at the same time, because when you're working for a single company, you know how work gets done, you know who knows everything about what's going on in the offices, and you know, you're pretty comfortable in that kind of environment. When you're an external consultant being brought in, a couple of things are true. One is you don't usually get called in when everything is going well. Usually they're in trouble, and there are some very good reasons for why they're in trouble. And secondly, you need to be able to adjust. I think Russ mentioned understanding how the profession is practiced, understanding the organizational culture, which can be very different in Germany than it is in Mexico. And, you know, so you really get a wide variety of experiences. You see the importance of understanding people and what makes them function. So I would say any opportunities that let you broaden your experience and, you know, get some experience under your belt going in where you don't know a whole lot of people, you know, would be very, very valuable. So, and sometimes you can do that as a contractor. So if you're working as a temporary contracting position, you go in and you get that kind of experience, even, you know, if it's managing a smaller project. So I'll stop there so I don't take up all the rest of the time. But yeah,
no,
it was
perfect.
A marvelous opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and I would say in all fields, so I'm imagining, you know, at least in the career world, we see a lot of growth with contract and freelance work. So I'm sure that crosses over to project management as well. Okay, Russ, we have another question. I'll throw this one to you. Is a certificate or degree, I guess I should say certificate, from PMI always necessary, or it mainly gives one credibility? This person says they do a lot of projects in a medical center, so I'm assuming they do not have the certification, and they're just wondering about that.
It's interesting because I've done 2 presentations at nurses' conferences recently on project managers. A huge request for information in that particular industry. If we're focusing just on credentials, though, I would not have got my job without my master's. There are many jobs that require that you have the PMP certification or an equivalent certification to be eligible to get in the mix of interviews. But those are usually industry specific. Primarily the IT industry is one that you usually have to have some kind of certification go in. The healthcare industry is very credential oriented, so if they're looking for a project manager, it wouldn't surprise me that many of their jobs would require that you have some kind of credential in order to be eligible for a job that's specifically labeled a project management job. But there's another large number of industries that do not require credentials. I think that's going to change over time.
Nicole, could I just add something quickly? You know, for anyone interested in seeing what a variety of industries are requesting, even if you're not looking for a job, you can use some of those resources on the slide that Nicole covered to look at positions that are posted and see how they're describing the project manager, program manager positions that they're looking for, and what kind of experience and credentials you know, are currently being asked for. I do that periodically, even though I'm not looking for any kind of additional work at this point, just to see where the profession is going. PMI.org also has a career headquarters where companies can pay to post positions and, you know, across the various industries. And I believe that that is open to anyone. I don't think you have to be a member in order to see the jobs that are posted. So you know, that would give folks on the webinar an idea of the credentials that are offered. I think the strongest combination is both. Obviously, that the PMP credential is almost seen these days as an entry-level credential, and then the master's degree shows your commitment to studying the profession further.
Okay, great. And one final question. So any resources that you all know of that are available for prepping for the PMP certification process and practice?
And I'll take that. This is Kathy Simmons. I just actually in the chat area posted something that Walden does offer. We at one time did actually have a full course to prepare for the PMP exam. The challenge was really trying to keep it current, keep up with changes in the project management body of knowledge, etc. But one of the things we do have is we have a partnership with a company called Skillsoft. And what Skillsoft has is a series of modules as well as a practice exam for the PMP certification exam. And you can actually get a 30-day free trial. So if you're very close to taking the exam, or you know that you're going to schedule it, you can sign up, get a 30-day free trial, and be able to go through the modules and prepare for the exam. Beyond that, it's a fairly low cost. You can get a one-year subscription, I think, for $199. It may even be less. But it's a great resource if you want to prepare for the exam.
Great. Thank you very much. And with that, we will wrap it up. Just want to share some career services resources. Speaking of LinkedIn, we highly encourage you to join our Walden University Career Services Center LinkedIn group. That's just about to surpass 4,000 members, so we're really proud of that. And we have students from all programs on there. We post blog stories, events, so you can definitely stay in the know. And then also feel free to connect with us on any way that's appropriate or convenient for you. We have a YouTube channel where we post our webinars and share success stories, Facebook, Twitter. We have a blog where we also write up. We do book reviews and success stories as well. And of course, our career services website. And one final quote before we wrap up. Of all the things I've done, the most vital is coordinating those who work with me and aiming their efforts at a certain goal. From Walt Disney.